Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. We're just trying to figure out some technical difficulties. So just please bear with us, hang on for a minute, and hang tight. We'll be with you soon.
Do you hear me now?
Welcome, Jan.
Yeah, but I don't think you can see me. Share. Do you see me now?
Getting there. There we go.
This is where I want it to be, but I'm here in my husband's mess. All right.
It's all about adaptability, Jan.
What?
It's all about adaptability. Just so you know, we did turn on, so the audience is here. We just wanted to let them know that we were just figuring out the tech problems, and it was a perfect model example of having to adapt to our environments.
Absolutely.
The problems that we face. So
Flexibility.
it's all about flexibility. So let's get started. So thank you everyone for joining. We're going to be talking today about the college search and application process. And for anyone that's attended these before, you know I get excited about finding executive functions in everything. And so we're going to be exploring how this doesn't just have to be a labor to get to college, but can actually be a very useful tool to build up skills. So I'm excited for today. And so we are joined by Jan Sigmon from the University Playbook. And she is a college advisor, and she'll jump into with one of our initial questions about what that entails. I can tell you from my own experience, not all college advisors are cut from the same tree. There are different things just to look for when working with college advisors and taking advice from college advisors. Samantha Feynman is always joining. Right now, her name does say Casey Schmaliker. There are not two of me with this name.
Every time. Every time.
But Sam is the director of New Frontiers, and I'm the real Casey Schmaliker from New Frontiers as well, operations manager. So let's jump right in. And so just before we get into what this whole college process is, Jan, if you could just give a little bit of an overview of what a college advisor does, because I think it also really highlights what the whole college search is. Because a college search, you could think it's just I look up colleges that I like. And this process isn't just that. So if you could just give a little bit of an overview of what a college advisor does, I think it'll set the table.
Absolutely. So an independent college advisor, or some people call them third-party college advisors or consultants, are professionals who exist besides a child's school counselors who help with the college process. Both public and private schools, generally speaking, have advisors. They may be called different things. They may be called deans, college placement officers, whatever. They will help a group of students, usually by the second semester of junior year of high school, start to think about the college process. But each of those people, depending on the size of the school, could have anywhere from a minimum of 30 to 40 students that they're helping to a maximum of several hundred students. So, clearly they're not going to be able to devote the requisite amount of time to really hold hands with the students and their families during this process. What an independent college consultant does is see students, hopefully, nothing wrong with coming to see a college advisor in, well into junior year or even the beginning of senior year before you start to apply, but optimally, early enough in high school where the advisor can help both the family and the student start thinking about the college process. And that starts with developing an authentic narrative for the student. By the time most school college advisors see a student and the family, you're halfway through junior year. You are who you are. Your bed is made. It's very difficult to switch gears and make changes. What a good college advisor will do is help a student and family identify activities and interests of a student early on, make sure that they're going to be focused on those activities throughout high school. If, for example, they're an athlete who's going to play at the college level, that should start happening very early on in college, making sure that they're playing in the certain leagues, that they're identifying themselves to various universities and coaches. If they're performing arts students, they need to sort of understand, well, what are they doing? What ballet troupe are they working with? What bands or external orchestras are they being involved in? That sort of thing, whatever it is. And also start to identify what types of activities they want to become involved with at their own schools. How involved in the school activities versus outside activities. And then also college advisors help hone in on academics. Is this student someone who should be taking the hardest, most rigorous possible curriculum that's offered by the school? Should they be going outside the school, perhaps to take college level courses outside? Are they getting the proper help? If it's a student with learning challenges, which many students have, they have to make sure that you're finding the right kind of support systems if your school is not really having that happen. In addition, students who have learning challenges should be certified to be a student who perhaps gets extended time or some other kind of help in a testing or paper type environment, not just at their school, but also if they're going to be taking college boards or any type of college level exams, they may need and should be able to get extended time to make that kind of testing, more fair for that student's learning style. And then really the final thing, it really is the final thing, although people think it's the only thing, is the identification. Hopefully at the end of 10th grade, even as you start to get into 11th grade, there's plenty of time, thinking about the kinds of schools that a student might be interested in, what's right fit. What I focus in on is not what parents think, that their kid can only go to Harvard or Yale, but what's really the right fit for the students, his or her interests, and help the families and the students identify those schools, understand what's required, generally speaking, for admission to those schools, and help them think about going to tour them in a non-COVID environment. In a COVID environment, there may be virtual tours that are going on. I also assist my students, and a good college advisor should assist the student in developing interview skills, to be able to actually go through a 15-minute conversation with another adult, either in an alumni interview, if they're trying to be, a recruited athlete with a coach. You have to be able to hit your 5 or 6 bullet points about who you are and say it succinctly and clearly and reveal who you are to people. Not that you're expected to be a complete professional adult in it, but you should be able to be conversant about who you are and what your interests are. So all those things happen. And then the final step of college advising is really developing the best possible college application. That means getting your personal statements, which are, generally the main essays for the college app, the individual supplements for each college you're applying to that are all very specific, identifying why you want to go to these schools, what programs are available, and being conversant about it in your own essays, and, completing and submitting the applications timely. So that's a lot, but those are the kinds of things that
you totally gave me a layup for this next question. And just before I ask this next question to Sam, I just forgot to launch the poll just to see the makeup of the audience. So if you could just quickly complete that, it just helps us better understand. So if you guys could fill that out, I would be amazed to see. There are some elementary school parents here. That's amazing. It's early, but it can never be too prepared. Okay, so we got 67% professionals and 47% of high school student parents, and then 13% elementary school, 7% middle school. So everything Jan just shared was like a lot in this process. It's a lot. It's overwhelming. It starts early. And so, Sam, we got a question from the audience about how does this relate to executive functions? And so I got a couple of probably supplementary parts for you to touch on, but I would love to hear, just in general, what does the college process have to do with developing executive functions?
So I think that, going through the application process for college is one of the first times that students will really have to utilize strong executive function skills. What are executive function skills? They're goal-directed behavior, right? We know we have a goal, we have to get there. Our executive function skills help us get from point A to point B. So if our goal is to get accepted into college, then we have to use our executive functioning skills to get ourselves from the point of our goal is to get into college to actually getting into college. And there are a lot of different steps that go into that process. And an independent educational consultant can help and facilitate in that process, but ultimately it's the responsibility of the student to do a lot of parts up to that application process in order to get from knowing they want to apply and try to get into certain schools and actually doing it. So you're talking about being able to take the concept, break it down, do the research, write the essays, get information in a timely manner, multitask in the effect of you're still going to school, you're still in high school, so you have to navigate completing a strong high school year, as well as getting your applications in, knowing where you want to go, doing the visits, making decisions about what is a right fit for you, asking the right questions to make sure that you are putting yourself in a position where you're going to, or you're applying to schools that would be a good fit for you and satisfy your needs in terms of what you want to study, where you want to be, what type of culture you want to be in terms of a campus. Are you, part-time or full-time, going away, commuting from home? There's a lot that has to go into the process. And, I think it's one of the first times that students will see that they really have to be in the driver's seat of a lot of these decisions, because ultimately they're the ones that have to have the buy-in and the accountability when they're actually on campus. Up until college, a lot of times students are very used to people making decisions for them about where they're going to go to school and what they're studying and what their schedule looks like, what their day-to-day looks like. We all know what it's like to, navigate the K through 12 environment with children. And a lot of it is parent-driven, teacher-driven, staff-driven, school-driven. And college is one of those first experiences where it's a role reversal, where the students are actually taking the reins of responsibility of making sure that they're setting themselves up for a good fit.
And I think the one other thing I was just thinking of when Jan was speaking that just made me smile when this question came in was, there's this concept for the professionals here, there's a concept of scaffolded support. You provide a certain amount of structure in place to allow them to build up those foundations themselves. And so, yes, not every student needs a college advisor to do these things, but some benefit by having that scaffolded support to work on these skills. Because I liked how Jan just spat it all out, because it is a lot. I remember being that sophomore saying, whoa, PSATs, college now, like clubs, like if I want to be the president, I have to do X, Y, and Z of this club. It's a lot. And so the relation to executive function is how the students access these supports and how the supports are provided. And so I would love to bring one question in, Jan, with a little bit more of the drive. And then we have like a very specific one about activities. But why is it so important for parents not to do for their kids through this process and really have their kids be the one doing? So, and like, I know it fits into a lot of different areas, but like the personal narrative that you're developing, the schools they want to go to, why does this really have to start with the kid?
Because it's going to be their experience. We all as parents, or those of us who are like, you've had your opportunity, you've been to college, this is time to sort of start to loosen the reins, and you want to guide your child and make sure that they're achieving the necessary milestones, because timing matters, and a schedule matters, and accountability matters. And I think an independent college consultant can help provide, as you referred to it, Casey, the scaffolding or the accountability that here are the things you have to do. I know with my clients, we go through very clear, broad schedules that get narrower and narrower as time goes on, right? Because there are milestones that have to be hit, but they understand what has to happen freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, and senior year, and what the timing requirements are. So that if there is a framework, if both in conjunction with parents, I work with the student to create this framework, but it can't be my words or the parents' words that are, getting to the page and presenting who they are. I help families and other professionals like me help families and students in particular get to suss out really who they are as people and what they want to achieve. And then I can help direct them how to get there. But they have to participate because this is part of maturation and adulthood. Parents aren't going to be sitting with their kids in a dorm room or in a college classroom, you know, taking exams for them or making sure that the paper gets in on time. This is all part of, or actually creating a network for themselves that's going to help them get internships and jobs. You know, I think of the college process as the first, you know, giant step into adulthood, and the best we can do as parents and as consultants and advisors is to provide the framework for them to take that step. And, you know, they have to try and learn about how they want to portray themselves. And my job, right, is to make sure that it's not something so outrageous that an admissions officer is going to say, oh my Lord, you know, what is being said here? You know, can't be too negative, can't be too much braggadocio, that kind of thing. And I can help, you know, create ideas based on who a child is and help them really develop and flourish with those, you know, with those basic foundations. But it has to come from the student. It has to be their work, their thoughts, you know, a portrayal of who they are, and I guide through that process.
And so I think that's
By the way, let me add one other thing I want to say. And to those parents who want to fully, you know, write things for their students or have the college advisor, you know, 100% write it, believe me, admissions officers are very smart. You know, they know what how an adult speaks and how a child speaks, and there are certain telltale things about how things are written. So it really does, it can be improved upon and edited, you know, by someone like me, but it really has to be like a sui generis thing that a student is developing for him or herself.
And it's so important, because what happens, like as Jan said, what happens when they get there? Like, it's a really, really difficult thing for a student to believe they earned their way into a school and then to fail out of that school because they can't handle the rigor. That does a lot to their ego. But one thing I did want to take back, not take back, but to jump back to a little bit, Sam, and pull you in, it sounds overwhelming. It sounds like a lot. And so that is like a description of like the perfect college process. And so how important is it setting those realistic goals, or helping the students set realistic goals of where they're trying to? Like, the college search process is very different for someone trying to get into Yale on scholarship than someone that wants to go to a state university. So like, why is that important as well, to not put that pressure on?
Well, it does seem overwhelming. You know, it is a big decision, and it is a big goal. And with a big goal comes a lot of little steps in order to achieve that goal. And without writing it down and timelining it and creating a to-do list and kind of like being strategic about what is going to be done with plenty of time to get it all done, it can feel very overwhelming. But the goal here is to take that concept and break it down into smaller pieces early enough in the search process so that all of the pieces can get done and not at an overwhelming last minute level. So it's really important, you know, I think, you know, Jan would agree, to start as early as 9th grade. And what you do with the children in terms of the whole process isn't at the same rigor you know, in 9th grade as it is in 11th grade, but it's a start, and it makes it feel less overwhelming because you're getting things done early in the process. You're having conversations about things early in the process. So then when you're actually going through the application process in 11th grade, that you're at a place where you know, where it's not all new. You know, visits have started, discussions about what you want to study have been started, understanding what needs to go into the applications have started, you know, preparing for the college boards has already been started. So the earlier you can start exploring these different topics, the better, because they're not foreign as the kids get older and start really getting into it in the junior year, senior year, you know, part of their studies.
Right.
And
I'd interject in that, like, for example, I mean, this would be a simple thing. If you have a child that really is oriented towards STEM, right, towards science and math and so forth, and let's say the child wants to go into engineering, you have to know fairly early on in high school that that's an interest, because if you want to apply to an engineering school, you're going to need to have taken physics, you're going to need to have taken advanced math courses. It would make a difference in terms of the curriculum that's being followed in high school. So something like that, or if the student really has the ambition of playing college soccer or whatever, there's a process, and recruits are identified as early as 10th grade for college, sometimes even before. So you got to make sure you're going to places where coaches are identifying you. I mean, these are just very small examples, but it needs to start on a smaller scale earlier on, so that it's not completely overwhelming when you have 3 months before application time, or it's just not going to go. And I think, to your point of executive functioning skills, as I always say to my students, you just can never wait till the last minute. It's true for schoolwork, it's true for writing essays, doing applications, and sort of mapping out what the next few years is going to look like. You need to plan ahead. Planning ahead is really key.
And just, I just wanted to say one thing that's so important. If a student starts off 9th grade saying, I want to go to an Ivy League, and they start trying to do the things that they need to do to be able to get into an Ivy League, and it's too much, what a great lesson to learn that maybe that goal was too far and I need to pull back. It's too much for me. Or I need to adapt. I need to sacrifice these things. These lessons to start learning it can never happen too early. To realize just because you want something, you have to put in the work. You got to try. Or you might just have a wrong goal and you need to adjust it a little bit. That's okay too. That's executive functions, and it's practice. And so making sure they're not stuck in this, if I just do X, Y, and Z and get all the support in the world to do X, Y, and Z, everything's going to be okay. There is life after the acceptance. And so just, yeah, go Sam, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. With the executive functioning piece as well, there's a lot that you can start working on in 9th grade, again, to transition the reins from the parents being responsible for things to the children. And I think a lot of times we kind of wait till the last minute to allow our kids to make their own plans, advocate for themselves, make phone calls, write emails, check email, do their own laundry, make an easy meal, just navigating kind of those day-to-day responsibilities, waking themselves up with an alarm. As parents, sometimes we do for our kids, but you have to remember you're not going to be able to be there to do for them when they get into college. So, when it comes to all of those kind of executive function, daily living, self-advocacy tasks, being able to communicate with other people, it's really important that they get opportunities to practice, and you back away a little bit as they get older through 9th grade, 10th grade, etc., and allow them to take the reins and be responsible for those things on their own, so that they can get used to being the one that is responsible for speaking on behalf of themselves, taking care of themselves, getting themselves to school on time. Very, very important.
I would agree with that. And I would say that, further to that point and executive functioning, little things you could do early on. For example, a lot of colleges, let's say, want to see leadership, not just that you were a member of something, but maybe you founded it, you led it in some way, you took initiative. A student who comes to me, for example, in 9th grade or even early in 10th, who, let's just say, has an interest in a community service project, instead of just, joining a million things by the time they get to be a junior, because they're going, boy, my, resume looks a little thin, maybe I'll go join this and that. That's not going to cut it. If the student in 9th, grade says, gee, I have an interest in helping elderly or interacting with isolated elderly people, they have an opportunity early on to start a really small scale thing, for example, that maybe helps a few people in their apartment building or in their neighborhood or something like that. And by the time they get to be a senior, this thing may have grown to who knows how many people are being helped, and maybe they're recruiting members. So now what would have been just a participant in a community service project, the child now has taken it upon him or herself and now has actually founded something that's grown, and they have a story to tell. So that's like an example of really taking the reins earlier on to build something that you can legitimately call your own. And the other thing I wanted to mention in terms of like executive functioning skills is the ability to pivot and have resilience. So if, for example, something didn't work out as you planned, maybe you aren't going to make it as a D1 athlete or whatever you had aspired to be, there's plenty of opportunity by planning ahead to take a step back and reevaluate. Things could include a gap year, for example. That's a very useful thing if like maybe you need another year of some kind of leadership or some kind of experience in sports, if that's what you wanted, or you're just not sure where you want to go at a certain time, or you're not sure you're quite ready to jump from high school to college. Taking a gap year and doing something constructive is a perfectly acceptable and wonderful way to allow your child to develop at his or her own pace and end up in a right fit school.
And so I want to get one of these, you're bringing up adaptability, resilience, so we have to talk about the pandemic a little bit. And so there was a question of how have the ideas of activities been like impacted by the pandemic? Like all of my plans got thrown out the window. I had my sophomore year activity plan so that I could do it, and now I can't. It's in person. What are some of these other activities? I mean, we are moving more towards in person, but what I think is really important to visit this is the other types of activities that came up, they're not going away. The tech and web world that we're in is here to stay. So like Jan, through this past year, what have you seen like some creative approaches maybe some students have taken?
Sure. So a few things. I mean, as to a little bit to what I was saying before about, helping with community service, I have seen so many creative ways that students have helped people in their community early on in the pandemic when people were literally fearful of leaving their apartments, right, in New York City. I had students that were doing shops for people, like shopping for, elderly or people that were somehow immunocompromised and were afraid to go get groceries. And, I had one particular student who did that in her own building and then recruited a bunch of friends, and they actually developed an entire network where they were basically running errands for people that served a tremendous need in the community. I had another student who really enjoyed playing chess and was supposed to like go to elderly homes or assisted living places to work with people who were living there, but they couldn't do that obviously. So he developed a way to do it online. And there are even, and played chess online and had people doing it. There are even organizations that were facilitating that. For example, Adhd is an organization in New York City that, identified certain nursing homes and had people playing chess. So there are all kinds of ways to do that. And frankly, many internships where people were more creative, whether it's something in finance or in education or you name it, they were allowing, it's smaller and it's not as interesting, I agree, than interacting with people live, but they were holding the internships online, and students would have work to do, whether it was research or sitting in on meetings and moving along with it in a different way. And it's not optimal, but it was possible.
I get so happy hearing those stories personally. Like it shows so much cognitive flexibility of saying I'm presented, like that is an exercise in executive functions, practicing those executive functions of, okay, I can't do this anymore. Does that mean I just give up? What else could I do? What else is out there? And those types of questions are executive functions. That's your brain prompting yourself towards a goal.
And pivoting, really pivoting to the new thing. You have to be able to look, it's true as adults. It's younger people just have to understand the same way. If a job doesn't work out, you have to kind of pivot, or the career you were in is kind of a dying breed. You're going to have to find a way to reinvent yourself a little bit and move on to the next thing. And it's not dissimilar to the experiences that students are having during the pandemic in terms of internships and, jobs.
And so, Sam, we got a great goal-based question. Before I share it, one of the things that I think is, I've just been thinking about this all day. I forget where it came up earlier. College is not the goal. Like we need to remove that. College is a step towards a goal. College is like, the function of college is to provide you with experience to get a career. Your career is the goal. College is a step towards it. And yes, you said it's a shorter term goal. I know for 9th grade parents, you're like, this isn't short term, this is long term. But like, by framing college as the goal, you get these kids like me. I graduated from college having no idea what I wanted to do. No idea. I went to college and I applied because I was supposed to. I went as an electrical engineer. I dropped out after the first day and I went into government and law and economics. And I never took an economics course before. I had like a change of goal. But I do think it's important that college is a means to the end of getting a career. And if it's just to explore what you want to do, like, let's be clear that that's the purpose it's serving, because that informs the type of colleges you look for. So my long-winded intro, Sam, to this question of, it's challenging to get high schoolers to articulate the goal that they want. Like, they want to be competitive. They want to do the same things. It's hard to articulate it. Not everyone has like the Michigan Bears, like in the background, like their brother went there, that's where they want to go. So what are some strategies to really help pull that out? And then Jan, I'm totally going to jump to you after that about that self-discovery piece and creating that narrative. But Sam, like, first, just concrete, like, how do you help someone discover their own goals?
I mean, so to answer the question, just, is it challenging? It could be. And I think it's important to identify when it is challenging and why it's challenging. And then that's where you're going to develop your strategies in order to support the students through, being able to understand and articulate what their end goal is. So it can be challenging for various reasons. So we're always going to have some students that know exactly what they want to do, when they want to do it, where they want to go, what they want to study, where, all of that stuff. And then you have others that don't know what they want to do. And so when it's hard for them to articulate their goal, we have to understand, why is it hard for them to articulate? Do they not know what they want to do? Do they not know what their interests are? Are they scared to make that transition from high school to college? Lots of kids get very nervous about that transition. They're very used to and comfortable in an environment that they know, where they have their friends, they have their, bedroom, they have their pets and their family, and they're completely content in that environment. And so that can cause a lot of, anxiety or fear of having to transition from the known to the unknown. Others, they don't know what they want to do. So it's hard for them to, set a goal of where they want to go and what kind of environment they want to be in, when they don't know what they want to study, or they don't know what they have a passion for, or they don't know where they want to be. So really exploring the why behind the challenge is really, really important, and then helping to remediate that why. So if it's, I don't know what I want to do, I don't know what my interests are, I don't know what I want to study, a combination of kind of some career exploration, college exploration, some interest inventories, and exposure to different types of activities can be very helpful to start to try to figure out what I like versus what I don't like. We always tell our clients, it's just as important to understand what you're good at versus what you like to do versus what you don't like to do. It's very different to want to study accounting and actually be an accountant. What does it mean to be an accountant? What are the different various roles that you can play? You can work for a big firm, you can work privately, you can do taxes, you can do other things. So it's those questions many times can be very overwhelming to a student that doesn't know the direction in which they want to go, because they need to be exposed to different things to try and start to pave out that direction. So identifying the challenge and then coming up with strategies to remediate those obstacles that they're creating is really important. And it's going to be different from student to student.
Yeah, no, and the one other thing, like when we're saying like knowing the career to inform the college, it's not like a specific career. It's a career field. So like when you're far away from a goal, your goal is going to be broader because you haven't made those decisions that are pigeonholing you into specific areas. Also, unless like if you apply to a liberal arts school, you can always change majors. Like, so the main thing though about goals that's just important is a goal isn't just always about achieving that goal, it's about moving towards it. The goal might shift, but you've still moved forward, right? So if you can inform the college that you're going to, because generally I like math and science, I want to go to a school that has a good lab programs, they do invest in the sciences. Look, maybe you went in thinking that you were going to study biology and you switched to chemistry, but science was your field. So like just clarifying that, like one of the questions that we always ask, Sam hinted at it, I love asking it though, is you ask, what are you good at? What are you not good at? What do you like? What do you not like? They're different things. And asking the question, anytime I've asked a student, I've seen like an eyebrow raise. It's like, oh, they aren't actually the same all the time. Like maybe I enjoy something that's also hard. Maybe I'm not going to apply to a school just because they offer what's easy for me. Maybe I want what I like. But we got a bunch of questions that came in. So I do want to get to them. I have some great theoretical ones, but I do want to get to some of the ones that the audience is actually asking. So Jan, what role does social media actually play? Are colleges looking, and how do you present this? Like, what about that really smart student? Oh, I don't put any of my information in there. They'll never be able to find me. Like, how do you navigate that?
You know, this is a personal thing, but as a professional, I would honestly say once you hit junior year, stay off major social media or make it incredibly benign. Is that what you mean? Like posting your whole life on media? Is that what you're, okay. Because I just think, yes, they do. And in this world of tremendous cancel culture, admissions offices do look, people do look, even once kids are in school. I'm sure we've all read stories in the news where a student's, misstep on social media in high school years before ends up creating a problem for them later on. And certainly in the business world, this is true as well. I think you have to be incredibly careful about what's posted. And I certainly advise all my clients, like, you can use social media, when you're getting to, be, in high school, but be very, very careful about it. And I even have advised, and I know many schools in New York City advise the students to not have your social media account be your name. It should be, some twist on it, or not you, because kids are just very loose and free about what they're posting. And in this, very politically correct world, it would be a terrible shame to put something that really was not intended to be disparaging or negative, create a long time problem for you. So I think it's dangerous.
And one of my biggest suggestions is just arm the students with the information.
Yep, and you choose. They have to choose.
And all you can hope for is that they make the right decision. But the biggest thing to avoid is that they don't make that connection. That colleges do look. Colleges do find ways to find.
They don't always, but they do. Some do, and it can really
assume
downside.
That they do.
That's right.
It's better just to assume. If they did see it, would you want them to? Would you want that to be like, would you take your social media and put it with your resume and hand it over to them? And just try to make it as clear as possible. But this is one of those areas that they start to become adults, and we got to start at least showing them that there's consequences
Yes.
the decisions. What could those be? Because that's how you inform, that's executive functions also. You think about your actions and you think about what's the cost benefit analysis looking forward into the future. So Sam, so with some of this stuff, we had a question from the audience about an individual, a mom has a child with diagnosed with Asperger's, and a lot of this just sounds like it's way too unattainable of a goal, being the leader of a club, doing all of these different activities. But how can the college search process still be so useful for developing some of those skills that some individuals diagnosed with Asperger's struggle with, like metacognition, like self-awareness, like communication? How can this skill be a vehicle for them to be able to build up those core skills, which are really foundational to developing executive function skills as well?
I mean, I think with you know, not to overgeneralize, but with a lot of our clients, you know, with the diagnosis of Asperger's autism spectrum, we see that a lot of times the social communication and the interpersonal skills can be, and the sensory issues can be challenging in the college environment. So I think that, you know, again, for each person, what the challenge is going to be different. And we really need to analyze what each specific individual may perceive as an obstacle once they get to campus, and remediate those obstacles as quickly as possible before they make that transition, or put supports in place to help them through those transitions, so that they're more likely to be able to thrive in that environment without the scaffolding that they're used to having in an environment where they have more support. So, you know, when it comes to things like self-advocacy and practicing, knowing who you are as a learner, what you should utilize in order to be able to access knowledge, and access curriculum and demonstrate knowledge, these are very important skills to have prior to making that transition to college. And so for clients on the spectrum, I think a lot of times we see that hesitation to be able to initiate and sustain interactions with people that they're not necessarily familiar with. So getting into the habit of being able to have a point person on campus in the Office of Disabilities that can help you to navigate difficult situations can be incredibly, incredibly helpful. So having some sort of a relationship with somebody that can act as an advocate for you on campus when you struggle is tremendously important. It can be a counselor, it can be somebody in the Office of Disability Services or the counseling center. Really important to have access to that person, to be able to understand how to get access to that person and how to describe to them what is you're finding challenging in the environment. You know, I remember one of our clients, Casey, that I, you know, visited on a college campus his first semester, and what he said was, I feel like I'm an alien on a different planet. I don't know how to navigate this environment. I don't know how to make friends. I don't know how to talk to my professor. I don't know how to ask for help. I don't know, you know, how to join a club. And a lot, you know, he wasn't having any problems academically in the classes. He was able to keep up and surpass all of the other kids in the classes, but it was that social navigation piece that he really struggled with. Whereas another student may have a struggle with, you know, following 5 syllabi and creating a long-term plan of what do I need to study and complete and when, and how do I do that in a timely fashion. So, you know, again, it's all about kind of individualizing the experience, trying to predict in advance, looking at the functioning level of independence currently that the students are at, and then filling in the gaps of what the expectation is going to be when they get to college. So you know, that all of that stuff is very important to kind of identify well in advance.
I would just add to that a little bit by saying that this goes to what I said about finding right fit schools. There are schools that have those resources and those abilities, and many of which specialize in it and really have the resources that that sort of student needs to accomplish, whether it's academic or social. There are certain places that would not be right fit for a child who is on the spectrum on any level. So I think that's what I mean by like identifying what's right for your child, not just what theoretically is where you want the child to be or where he or she might wrongfully think they should be. You have to have the support, or else what's the point?
Right.
You don't want to send them off to college for automatic failure. I mean, that makes no sense.
Exactly.
Because as important accomplishing the academics is also building a lifetime network, right? It's the start of building a lifetime network, and you need to be able to interact with people in order to accomplish that.
Yeah, no, and again, just thinking about the question of where do I want to go? It lays the foundation for executive functions. And so any student that says, I don't know, like, where do you think I should go? Don't answer that question, professional or parent, because what that does is it continues the enabling of a lack of accountability to their growth and development, to their goals, because it's much safer to go with mom or dad wanted me to apply. I'll use my alma mater, Lafayette College. So I didn't get in. It's all their fault. It's because it didn't come from within them. So no matter the diagnosis, even if someone's neurotypical, thinking about what they want and the steps to achieve it, that's executive functions in a nutshell. And so it doesn't have to be the ideal. Everything that we've talked about so far, it could be one thing. Maybe the goal isn't even to say we're definitely going to college. Maybe the goal of joining a club is to see if you want to go to college, to see if there's interests there. And so sometimes it's changing the goal so that you can figure out and make better informed goals. So Jan, I got a question for you here. What is applying like to college during a gap year? So I take a gap year, I'm traveling the world. Like I know a lot of people, I came from a very Jewish high school, and maybe 10% of the kids went to Israel after their senior year of high school. But what does that look like? Like when do you start applying? Like what is the gap year application process?
There's different ways to skin that cat, actually. One way is you apply.
Hold on. Did you say that because you saw cats in the background running behind me?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Okay. And also, just a quick aside, not to make you lose thought, but Sam has a hairless cat, so maybe you already skinned that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Don't make an appearance.
Okay. I only ever saw one on TV in Friends or something. I never saw a real one. But anyway, I think that with gap years, there's two ways to really approach it. One way is that a student applies, I'll call it, the traditional way, right, in senior year, and, seeks their right fit school. They apply, they get in, and they say, I want to defer a year and I want to travel the world, or I want to work with, building homes in X or Y place, whatever they want to do. So that's one way to have a gap year where you're actually, that's for a student who really knows more what they want, but they're just not ready to hop from high school to college. Perfectly understandable. A lot of kids did that this past cycle, right, with the pandemic, in full force, because they couldn't imagine a truly positive freshman year experience where people weren't on campus or something. Okay, that's one way. The second way is you're making this decision some point in high school. Usually it's the end of 11th grade, maybe the start of 12th grade, where you say, I have all these goals, but I don't really think I can achieve them by applying to college yet, because maybe I won't get in where I want, or I'm not really sure about what I want to do. So there are gap year programs. There are actually formalized gap year programs that take a million shapes and sizes. I mean, I could fill an hour just telling you, but very basically, there are ones that are super community service based. For the athlete who wants to actually play college sports, There are programs that are focused on, sports, where gap year kids go to like hone their skills and then get recruited during the year to, the schools that they're interested in. There are programs that allow you to do multiple things. I had one student who spent part of his gap year teaching skiing out west, and another part of it working at a baboon sanctuary in Sumatra. I mean, there's a million ways to do that. So it really depends what the goal of the student is. As you pointed out, Casey, there are students who, I had students this year who deferred and did a year in Israel, someone who's really interested, let's say, in scuba diving. There are all kinds of programs through the Island School and other places in the Bahamas where you work on ecological projects as well as, dive the seas. So it ranges. It really depends what the student's interest is and sort of where they are at that point, and whether the gap year is like a deferral, or is it more, I want to sort of find myself and rethink this.
And so, I mean, that's one thing that's always confused me a little bit. Like in that gap year, like, okay, June, we're done. We have the summer. Now we go into September. Like, when do you, if they didn't defer, they didn't even apply. Like, how much of a gap year is it? Like, when do they need to start the whole college process? College application process.
Skip that process and they're waiting. They would do it when they're ready that following fall, or they spend a year doing things they're interested in and apply the following year. There are also, by the way, plenty of schools that allow you to come in, starting in January as well, like, spring semester admission. So there are many possibilities. It really just depends on the student and the particular circumstances.
I would
say one thing. I think there should be, again, going back to what we said about planning, even if the plan is not fully formed, there needs to be some kind of plan, because you don't want, as you just said, someone never applies to college, during normal senior year, la-di-da, starts, goes through the year doing really nothing, and then, I don't know, waits around and the following May goes, oh, like, now now what do I do? I think you have to talk and suss out what it is that you want to accomplish with this gap year and what you're going to do during it, and then move forward and go a year later, if that's what you're doing.
Yeah, no, and it's just like a gap year. I feel like students like that term because it sounds like vacation for a year, but like if you plan on going to college the following year, you're starting to work on that 3 months after you graduate from high school. It's not like you have a full year without thinking about college.
No.
So if you don't do that defer.
Yeah, you want to create a story that you're going to tell that explains why you didn't apply right during college. That's all. You want an answer to why you did this. What were you feeling and what did you accomplish in that year? That's all. You need to have a story to tell, just as you have a story to tell if you go the more, traditional route.
And so just one other piece to this question, and you might not have a specific, like it'll be a couple of answers, but for colleges that offer support for ADD, ADHD, do any come to mind that are like top for you? I know Sam and I have presented before on different tiers of support on college campuses, and so I'll toss it over to Sam afterwards. But I didn't know if there was any, either just a general kind of response of looking at places that offer this support, or if any come to mind when
I would say, I hate gross generalizations, but I'll make one. I would say that a tremendous number of colleges and universities, large and small, public and private, highly selective and less selective, almost all have significant, what I will term as learning resource centers, that are going to be able to accommodate students with all kinds of learning differences, and I would call ADHD one of those learning differences. The thing I would say though is, and I think it's really important, and probably if a student has, been experiencing this, they probably have the accommodation. You must have had the accommodation in high school to generally speaking, to get it in college. So you want to make sure that all your ducks are lined up and that you have the appropriate neuropsych testing that's up to date so that the colleges will make the accommodations and allow you to avail yourself of the resources that are available at that school. Now, that said, some colleges have better assistance than others. So clearly, if a student has significant issues with ADHD, they should not be going to X school, but should probably look at Y or Z. That's, something you have to really determine and go through the process.
And so, Sam, if you could just, I know we've talked about in other presentations, those different tiers of support, I think it's just important, like that, and then just also expectations that I think are important about that last part.
So, just generally speaking, there will be colleges that have a learning resource center or learning resources that are available to anybody on campus, regardless of whether or not you have a disability. So you're talking about writing centers, maybe tutoring centers, a math center, et cetera, et cetera. Then you're going to have colleges that have learning resource centers, but then also on top of that may have fee-based support centers where you pay extra money for your students. They sometimes have to apply separately to these programs, and for a fee, they are provided with a higher level of support. That may be an executive functioning coach, that may be a specific type of advisor. This is separate and apart from accommodations. All colleges have to provide an office that provides accommodations, but when it comes to actually learning supports, there's different variety of resources. So you have your learning resource centers available to everyone. You have your fee-based support programs that you typically have to apply to and pay additional for an additional layer of supports. And then sometimes you have colleges that are specific towards students with learning differences. So it really has to do with what is the right fit for the individual, what are their needs. If some of this, if it seems unrealistic for a student to go to a very large college full-time away from home without learning supports, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. What you want to do is you just want to find the right fit. What are they ready for? Maybe they're ready to take one class at home, and then the next semester take 2 classes at home, and then the next semester take 3 classes at home, and then and build up to a full-time capacity and then go away. What I always say to students, it's better to start slow and be successful than to go a traditional route and not be successful at it. There's nothing wrong with taking it slow. And so it's really important to identify what the students are ready for currently based on how they're functioning currently, as well as what is their buy-in to receive supports. We've had lots of college students that we've worked with that don't want to use supports on campus. They feel stigmatized. They don't want to go into a center. They don't want to be part of that. So those supports are not going to be advantageous because they're not going to utilize them. And so you really have to balance what are the students ready for with what are they going to commit to utilize, and find the right fit for them that takes all of that into account.
And so, there are also some schools that offer an executive function coach for free, but it's also schools that offer therapy. But some, you got to read the fine print. You got to ask questions. Who are the executive function coaches? Oh, it's a peer coach. It's just another student. Oh, it's a professor that it's a social worker that does this. Those are good questions to ask. What is the flexibility? What if they sleep late and miss their appointment? Does it get rescheduled?
How
what if they stop? What if they don't show up? Do they get a text message? These are the things to be thinking about. Think about where things go wrong with your student, and that informs the questions you ask of the support. There are some that are amazing. There are some that were amazing 2 years ago and have a different person running it now. And so that's why it's sometimes difficult to say like what's the best one, because leadership changes, staff changes, funding changes. So like you can think, maybe you think a program and let's just say University of whatever, some random state, let's say it's like a 100,000 person school. If they have an office with a staff of 3 people, you better hedge your expectations of the type of support you're going to get there. So the best thing, and I think Sam touched on it, what is the actual support provided? Who's providing it? And what are those like fine print? Read the fine print. The other piece is the culture. What is the culture of the office? And the best way to get a feeling of the culture is actually to visit the school, visit the office, have the student there and say, do you see yourself coming to ever work here and receive help? So a little bit of a tangent at the end about additional supports. That was a mini presentation that I think Sam and I did for HECA like 6 years ago. So yeah. For anyone that's a HECA member here, you may have heard it before. But I do want to say, Jan, thank you so much. You really bring such a confidence of like confidence and competence of this field. So anyone, there is a survey afterwards. Please submit any questions. Jan, Sam, I will all get them. We'll reply to you. If you want to set up a time, you'll be able to reach out and just let us know and we'll connect you and you'll get a follow-up email. If you guys know of anyone else that would benefit from this, there will be a recording put up onto our YouTube and also sent out via email. So if you could fill that out, I appreciate it. Again, Jan, thank you so much. And Sam, thank you so much. The cat did not make an appearance. And what a quick inside joke, your kids didn't make an appearance either, Sam. Maybe in a couple of years when we do this topic again.
Nice and peaceful tonight. Nice and peaceful.
Yeah, I always reference Sam's kids. I always like, Sam, tell us about your personal experience. And she got off this time, but
the whole time I was like, how much longer do I have until I have to connect my oldest with Jan?
All right. Thank you so much, guys. I hope you have a great night.
Good evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.